somebody tonight, all of the hurt and the pain that you've gone through.
We've got a number of distinguished guests with us, and I will let them introduce themselves, but I want to set the tone. When it comes to prostate cancer, Black men in America have a higher risk of prostate cancer. 1 in 8 men will suffer or develop prostate cancer. And for every white man who dies of prostate cancer, more than 2 Black men will. So Black men are 60 to 70% more likely to be diagnosed and suffer far more aggressive from this disease more than men at younger ages. So even in a system supposedly of equal access, the same diagnosis means a steeper climb for Black men, not because of biology alone, but because of the legacy and disparities, health disparities, which we're going to talk about. So tonight, we're not just going to talk about statistics, we're going to talk about lives. And we've got some people here, and just keep in mind that Black men are 70% more likely to be diagnosed and twice as likely to die from it. So we're going to go beyond the surface with our guests here. So gentlemen, welcome to the show. I'd like to start off and introduce Will Battle, and then we'll go to Michael Rollins, Dr. Fredrick Clark, and our guest, Andre Wright. So, Will, you got the floor.
Thank you very kindly, Brother Johnson. Thank you for having me on the show. And greetings to my brothers. Great to see you. I'm Will Battle, president and founder of Emmanuel Health Education Incorporated. We are a local, we founded in Prince George's County. We provide an array of health messages for men with a specific focus on prostate cancer. Also, Professor at Booth State University out of the Department of Education.
Okay, thank you much. Michael.
Great, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me as well. So my name is Michael Rollins. I'm the owner of Game Day Men's Health in Waldorf. We specialize in testosterone health, as well as medical weight loss, enhanced sexual performance, better known as erectile dysfunction, and then we do vitamin wellness in our clinic. So we serve men in our clinic as well. So of course, so we're looking forward to having this discussion.
Okay. All right, Dr. Clark.
Yes, my name is Dr. Fredrick Clark. I'm a graduate of Howard University College of Dentistry. I've been practicing dentistry in the Prince George's County metropolitan area for 30 plus years, but I do have a strong interest in health and wellness, chronic diseases, and health disparities within the African American community. I've sat on a lot of corporate boards, federal and local boards, and talking to stakeholders about healthcare matters and whatnot in the African American community around the Washington D.C. area. So I thank you for allowing me on this platform today.
All right, thank you, Dr. Clark. Andre Wright.
Hey, Gary, I want to say thank you also for inviting me to be a part of this podcast. And I am a prostate survivor since 2023, and I feel like I'm an advocate for awareness. And so I just want to say thank you to the panel and thank you to you.
Okay. Dr. Clark, I want to start with you, and then we can kick it around and open it up. But what is the prostate, and why does this matter?
Prostate is a small organ that sits in the perineal area, or the area of the pelvis between the penis and the rectum, if I can put it in an area where people can truly understand. It can be palpated through the rectum, and usually when you go to see a doctor, when you deal with men's health, they want to palpate the prostate to determine whether or not it has a normal shape or size, or they find irregularities such as hard growth, nodular growth, and whether or not it has the same size, so let's say a normal size versus a regular size and shape. That's how they help to determine whether or not there's some irregularities. It is involved in creating the semen that is that comes out during ejaculate when men are engaged in sex. I'm going to stop right there unless you have another question too, and then we can get deeper into that.
No, that's good. That kind of helps frame it. I'm going to ask our thought brothers to weigh in with any questions they have to get the discussion started. So let's say, Mr. Spivey, you got something?
You know, Dr. Clark, you just jogged my memory when you said that. I had a very close friend of mine several years ago, had prostate cancer. Successfully, he was treated. But ironically, I believe it was with him, it's kind of a hereditary thing in his genes because he had 5 brothers and every one of them have had prostate cancer. The most recent one, a few months back, and one of his older brother died from it. But he said something to me that was kind of strange, and I didn't pay a lot of attention to it at the time, but you jogged my memory. When he got prostate cancer, he said that the doctor told him that it occurred mostly in older men because after the age of 50, their sex life decreases, and it decreases a lot of time in a lot of men quite drastically, and that can contribute to the prostate cancer. Do you have anything regarding that?
Yeah, prostate does play a role in producing the production of semen. The prostate is enlarged by when you get changes in testosterone to dihydrotestosterone. That they see when that is elevated in the bloodstream, then you get an increase in the size of the prostate. You get increase in what they call the PSA or the prostate antigen. That increases in the bloodstream. So as you get older, and you notice also when the prostate enlarges, it causes sometimes it contributes to erectile dysfunction. Sometimes it can contribute to urinary incontinence. The inability to pass urine properly, or the stream is interrupted. And you brought up the component about prostate cancer and genetics. They will typically look at population groups and determine that if you have a history of prostate cancer in your family, you have a much higher increase of risk of getting prostate cancer, if you have a familial history as you get older. So yeah, definitely connections there.
Okay. Will and Michael, you all want to weigh in on that?
Well, what I want to kind of piggyback off what Dr. Clark has shared about that prostate. I think it's about the size of a walnut.
Correct.
Yeah, about the size of a walnut. And so there's 3 particular areas I want to mention about that prostate. Although there are a couple of lobes, there are 3 primary lobes that we should kind of bring to the forefront. There's like a transitional lobe that is typically when the doctor inserts his finger up the rectum. It's probably the first portion or the first lobe that the doctor will come in contact with when he does a digital rectal exam. Then there's a central lobe, and the transitional lobe. Transitional lobe is typically where, as we age, it starts to enlarge, and it's benign. It's benign, by the way. In other words, it's not typically cancerous, but it's typically the area that kind of enlarges and causes the restriction or the constriction of the urethra, and where men typically have issues with urinating and that kind of thing. Then it's like the middle of the prostate, which is about 20% of the mass of the prostate. And then there's the peripheral zone, which is the outer portion of the prostate. And that's typically where cancer can be found. Most times it's a larger portion of the prostate. It's called the peripheral zone. So those are some of the areas that when the doctor does the DRE, the digital rectal exam, those are some of the areas of the prostate that the doctor is seeking. But as Dr. Clark has so eloquently shared, that prostate is really, I don't know if I want to use the term major to, but essential when it comes to the sexual part of a man and ejaculation, because it produces that milky substance. And that milky substance typically sort of protects the sperm and helps it swim faster up the female vagina.
Okay. Michael.
Yeah, so for us, for our clinic, I think we're more on the back end, I would say, of it. So these guys eloquently went through how it works from a prostate perspective. What we do is we have the actual men come in and we test for PSA levels, in conjunction, of course, with testosterone. And so to kind of give you guys a makeup for us is 80% of the guys that come in are African American in our clinic. So when we test for PSA levels, uh, we've seen impacts for guys who, first and foremost, they haven't been to a primary care physician or even a doctor. I had a guy come in, he hadn't seen a doctor in 4 years, for example. So, his PSA level was it was 13. So, that's pretty significant, when you look at from an elevated level of 4 that we look at, be anywhere between 3.5 and 4, and then you have someone, 3 times that number. So this is, I hate to say it's common. I mean, more common than you would like. I'm not going to say from a percentage perspective, it's still fairly low. You're going to see somebody with 13. But the key thing I think we need to take away, and I'll be done on this part, is that while we identify what it is, what was said, what is prostate, how it works, then the other side of it is, how do men know that they have, any type of their PSA levels or prostate or prostate cancer, possibly prostate cancer. So that's one of the things that what we're doing, I think we're more on the forefront for, is they think they're coming in for a routine test and then they find out that they need to go see someone like a urologist or a primary care physician in relation to, prostate health. So I think that's the biggest thing for us, is that we're seeing the back end of what these guys just talked about.
Okay. Let me go to Will and then see if Andre has anything to weigh in. Good. You're on mute, Will.
Just trying to be compliant.
That's so good.
Question for Michael: How does insurance play with your organization? How does insurance play with what you guys do with your organization?
Yeah, so let me say this. So Game Day Men's Health overall, what is it, right? So we have about 370 different franchises across North America. 20 is about 20 in Canada, and then the rest is in the US. I'm the only one in this particular area, Southern Maryland. There's none in Prince George's County. I'm as you can imagine from African American perspective, we got about 180 owners. Probably looking at 1 out of 4 that wholly owns it out of 180. So that's one thing. Now from the insurance side, we do right now we don't take like a major insurance like Kaiser or Blue Cross or anything like that. We do health savings accounts or health reimbursements and flex spending accounts. This is an area where I'm having, the next step is for, to talk to see if we can get insurance, because I hear the common insurance. One of the reasons why is they talk, from from a franchise perspective here for us is some of the I don't use the word red tape. We're dealing with insurance companies or processes. So that's some of the things. And I think, what we're more of a concierge service. So, guys come in, we got big screen TVs, we got sporting events on, they got snacks, things like that, big cushy chairs. So I think it's more of from an experience perspective to appeal to men. So that's one thing we have. So the last thing I'll say on that part is that we need to, I think we need to, eventually get there to where we can take more of a common insurance, but that's where we are right now.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Andre,
Oh,
I was going to get Andre in, and then
okay.
we go back.
I feel like Magic Johnson when he came out with AIDS, and he was the spokesperson for the Black community regarding AIDS. And I came down with prostate cancer, and I was not going to take a back seat to the disease, and I wanted to educate as many Black can. It is a very difficult subject to talk about. I had one friend to die from prostate cancer, and I have a friend right now who didn't go for his annual checkup. And by the time he did go, he just went ahead and had the entire prostate removed. So I'm kind of trying to be proactive. One day at church, it was a men's fellowship, and I just came out. God placed it on my spirit to say it, that I have prostate cancer, and I moved forward with it. One of the brothers said 4 point something is the magic number. When I had high blood pressure, I was going to the doctor, and the doctor always would say, Andre, your blood pressure is high. And I go next year, and he says, Andre, your blood pressure is high. And I kept, so the following year, 1 year, I says, you always tell me that my blood pressure is high, but we don't do anything about it. So what we're going to do? So he started to give me high blood pressure medication. So that put me in line to go and have my annuals every year. And my primary doctor says, okay, Andre, your PSA is elevated from the last time, and we will monitor it. So it finally got to 4.73. And he says, Andre, this is the time that we need to kind of take a look at it. So we went to the MRI, came back positive for cancer. He ordered me to go through 28 rounds of radiation. And currently, I just had my checkup just the other day, August the 28th, and it's hitting at 0.449. And it's been at that number for a full year. And I was hoping that he would let me come back every year, but he wants me to continue with my every 6-month checkup and for a whole 5 years. And after 5 years, I can come once a year for my PSA scores. So, and for me, there's no physical sign that my PSA was high. I didn't have any adverse effect. It's almost like high blood pressure to me, the silent killer. And then once I started reading about prostate cancer, it shocked me, and I was like, okay, let's put this thing to work. And I don't know if you want me to tell you about the procedure, but I'll let somebody else speak. And if you want me to, I can tell you about the procedure the doctor prescribed.
Before we go, Andre, I just want to celebrate, where your numbers are today. So this is a great story. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Dr. Clark.
Yeah. So I was talking to Mr. Battle yesterday, and me being in the medical field, I'm in dentistry, but I'm in the medical field. And one of the things that we engage in is early detection and treatment. So I like to use what we have in dentistry as a huge problem, which is similar to be it blood pressure or prostate disease, and that's a periodontal disease, in that it progresses painlessly and without any type of symptoms, whatnot, until some people actually lose their teeth and end up either needing dentures or implants or bone grafts, all kinds of different things to help to keep teeth. Well, the thing is that I was saying to Mr. Battle was that we engage people too far along in understanding about prostate from birth. Why is it that you never learn about the prostate till you get past 40, 45, or 50, or until you encounter disease? when our discussion should be had with young men in their 20s and 30s about you have a prostate, and while you have this grand function of sexual activity, grand function of being able to perform like you want to, there's a part of your body that's undoubtedly, because of the statistics that we see, that at age 50, maybe 50% of men have some type of BPH or benign prostate hypertrophy or prostate enlargement. And I think one of the bigger problems that we have is that since we don't educate men about men's health, we don't educate men in a younger age when they can do something about it. Typically, when they find out about it, is through some routine examination. I remember, I think the first time I had a prostate examination, I was past 40 years old. A doctor did a digital rectal examination, and everybody jokes about it rather than looking at it, for the seriousness of what it is that he's addressing. They just did it as part of the routine physical. Even after he did it, I did not realize the relationship of that to prostate cancer. When they talk about elevation of PSA numbers, I didn't take into account that, okay, I'm more concerned about the fact that I may have, reduced urine flow. But I'm not thinking about the fact that I have something that could possibly turn into a cancerous situation that could either kill me or cause me to have erectile dysfunction or require me to have some type of surgery related to prostate disease, prostate cancer. So the fact of the matter is that we're way too late when we start talking to our population, our age group, 50 and above, when we should be way ahead when they're in their 20s and 30s, say, you have a prostate, this is what you're going to be faced with going forward. So, and I say this because I say the same thing to my patients in regard to periodontal disease. Though you don't see any signs of gum disease or periodontal disease here now, at 30, I can see bone loss beginning to occur. At 40, I can see signs that teeth are starting to show some mobility. At 50, I can see you've already lost 20% of your teeth to periodontal disease and you don't even know it. And this is the exact same problem we have with regard to prostate disease, because no one is sharing it with the people until they show up and you discover something. Maybe you're on you draw blood and you get a PSA. And that's way too late. And that's just not what we should be doing. And that's the whole thing across the board with most African Americans. And when we talk about health disparities in chronic disease, we're getting the information way too late. When this gentleman talked about blood pressure being told 2 or 3 times, I get patients in my chair who are 50 years old who are paralyzed from half of their body because they were told at 40 that they had high blood pressure. They were told to get on blood pressure medication. They get it and quit it. But nobody expressed to them saying, you don't know how serious this really is as you progress in age. And we act like we don't progress in age. We act like we're on autopilot. We act like everything is going to be fine as long as we feel good, and feel good will kill you.
Okay. Wow. Let's go to the youngest person on the panel, CJ.
CJ here?
CJ's here.
Okay.
Let's let CJ weigh in here. Go ahead, CJ.
I would just like to get more into those preventative measures that were mentioned before, if we're talking about preventative measures and trying to get to things early, especially in this era, as we talked about with the insurance situation. I know a lot of people in my age range can't afford that specialist. They might be able to afford that initial checkup, but when you're talking about urologists and you're talking about specialists, then we're talking about, people's insurance situations. And, even now with the government shutdown, a lot more people are about to lose their health insurance on top of where we already are. So maybe some tips for some people who might not have the resources, but still want to take those preventative measures.
I think in response to what Dr. Clark is sharing, I do agree we should definitely have the conversation with the younger generation, but I also think what we have to consider, how do they value health?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
How do they value health? And then also we have to kind of take a look at, well, what are those things that are engaged in that culture that would cause them to have a cues to action to be as engaged when it comes to prostate cancer. Typically, within young, typically around that age, they may have testicular cancer that might show up in the age, and that's what they deal with. But I think a lot of it is because they're just, the emphasis is not because of the age group, and culturally, what do they see as being a value in that regard? Um, Having a conversation with a younger person about, his prostate, their thinking, their behavior, if they are aware of anything about it, well, that's something that happens to older men, and that's not something that kind of happens to me. So it's kind of like, well, what do they value? How do they value health in that regard? And oftentimes, we were all young once. We didn't really put a value on health. We didn't put a value on health until things starts happening in that regard. And I hear what you're saying, Dr. Clark. I hear exactly what you're saying, how things should be happening at a younger time frame when guys are younger, to kind of get them involved and whatnot. But then it's also key to ask ourselves, well, okay, so what do we do to hold that attention, to even have a conversation with them about that? And that's something that we should take a look at in engaging. Like right now, I'm working with I'm on the advisory board with Howard University and Johns Hopkins, and one of the things that we are doing right now is reaching out to middle school kids that we feel that may fit that mold of being future scientists. And so there are visitations that are made at the middle schools, to kind of identify, students that may fit the mold, that kind of thing. And I remember years ago, I was invited to do a session at Johns Hopkins, and I was so impressed. There was these two little guys. They couldn't have been no more, maybe the fifth grade, and they did a real basic presentation about the prostate, and I was just floored over their knowledge base. So, to kind of piggyback off what you're saying, Dr. Clark, you are correct. I guess it's just a challenge of how do we kind of steer that age group and the mindset to be able to receive that information, and to be, how do they value it as it relates to at the point where they are in life?
Yeah, so I just want to add one thing, couple of things in there. One is for us, how we appeal, the initial is that we offer a free consultation, the initial visit. So with that being said, we've had men come in and do an initial test, and then they'll see PSA levels, testosterone levels, for example. We can test for that. And that's one area. But also the last thing I want to say on that is that one of the things, and Dr. Clark, I put it very, very eloquently on, about trying to appeal, just kind of piggyback off that, is we're talking about us, when we look at, from our community, a lot of times, I find that we're not well represented in terms of, from a health perspective. We're well represented in sports. You can talk sporting events. I went to a cigar bar. You wouldn't even know it was a recession or the government was going to shut down. We're into a lot of different things, and not related to health. And so I was proposed to go out with the Parks and Recs Center and to do PSA kits. So we test, that's free. That's a free test for guys. So there's no money, you mentioned about money there. We test for that. And I'm working right now with the Parks and Recs on a ability to go out and run these PSA tests. Now it's going to cost money to run these things. It's expensive. So we're trying to find ways to kind of defer the cost. But then this is the things we're battling as well, is what's the priority? What's our priority? We're here, and I think we have the right people discussing this, but then from a greater perspective, we can run these, I can run these tests and, get 5 people to show up for it. So how do we appeal to say, hey, okay, it's free. You can still you can come in and get a free test, but will people come to it? Will they make time? Like I mentioned about the cigar bar or something like that. So those are the things that we're trying to figure out. I'm working with the Parks and Recs on to say, hey, I can bring the test kits. I can bring my medical assistants, certified medical assistants out. Let's figure out how do we appeal to people to come. So that's another battle too.
So let me say this. First of all, as African Americans, we can truly say that we have a disconnect between our so-called elders and our younger population. Young people listen to young people more so than older people. This thing of respecting your elders is a thing of it's an anachronistic notion these days. I think 2 things that you engage people where they are, and where young people are now is in social media. And believe it or not, one thing that Mr. Battle does, I think he does some with barbershops. It's another place that we are. So even if we made PSA posters to put in barbershops that spoke to young African Americans needing to know that they are at risk for disease, it's something you can put in front of their face. They have 100 podcasts, 1,000 podcasts of African American young people who every day are on podcasts every day, and very popular people. And we need to get into that community so that we as quote unquote elders, I don't like the term elders at all because I tell people all the time, this is about respect of human beings, respect of people, respect of our people as a whole, as fathers, as uncles, as brothers, as children, that we have to start thinking outside of the box of how do we get health messages across to our people, not just related to prostate cancer, but across the board, because we at the bottom of everything when it comes to health disparities, be it diabetes, of obesity, or heart disease, or stroke, or everything that you see where there's a health disparity, we're at the bottom. But we're not using all our resources, especially in time of social media, of AI, or all kinds of different things we can utilize as tools to reach out to our people, but we're not bridging the gap. And we're not doing anything to bridge the gap because we're so separated as far as what they're doing and what we're talking about. And we need to get past that. We need to figure it out. We need to stop playing these games with our people and watching ourselves die prematurely because we're not reaching back and talking to them.
Okay, thank you, Doc.
No.
Go ahead, Will. Then I'm gonna get Carlos in.
Okay. Well, as much as I agree with Brother Fred, Dr. Clark, I'm also prone to some degree to disagree because, there are a lot of organizations that are out there that are engaged with this information. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with this organization. It's called FIN, Prostate Health Education Network. It's called FIN by a brother named Thomas Farrington. He is African American prostate cancer survivor. He's all throughout the United States engaged in this work. Then we got prostatecancer.net. You got Zero Cancer. My organization's here. I know several other organizations that are in this area and beyond that are out there that are really out engaging in awareness campaigns, education. They're providing screenings. There's walks, there's runs, and so it may not be to the degree, to certain degrees, but there are organizations out there and much better in terms of educating than what it used to be. But we also have to take some of the initiative ourselves as African American men to want to be engaged with this information, to want to know, that are not putting up such a issue in terms of getting screened, to want to understand, to demystify all the issues as it relates to getting screened in prostate cancer, because we know that the greater your opportunities are if you're getting screened early, because screening early is the greatest defense we have against this prostate cancer. Mm-hmm. Everything that we do amidst our conversation should always go back to screening. because that's actually looking for something before it happens. And when we don't do that, we kind of take ourselves off the field of play. So, you know, we can look at things systemically if we wanted. We can look at socioeconomic status. We can look at all this other stuff, but we ourselves, to some degree, have to step up to the plate and be open and willing to be involved with this as well. There are opportunities out there, but are you willing to kind of step in there and take full advantage of the opportunities?
Okay. Carlos, and then we get to Andre.
Hey guys, thanks for being on the show this evening, everyone. A lot of great information. You know, a lot of things that not my area of specialty, but you know, I could be affected by it. So I want to make sure I get some takeaways from this. And it sounds like this being proactive with your regular medical and annual checkup is going to help. It sounds like just getting screened on a regular basis is going to help. Maybe that's done, would you say annually with your annual checkup after the age of 40, or would that be after the age of 50, or would it just depend on the person, depending on how their screenings come back? What do you guys say concerning those annual checkups, and then specifically for prostate cancer?
I would, if you guys don't mind my responding to this, Brother Pittman, a lot of it is based on, first of all, let me say family history. Okay, if you have a grandfather or a father or uncle, and it has spread, metastasized, then, you know, typically you're going to be getting yourself screened around 45. Now, if a father, uncle, or 3 or more family members had prostate cancer and it spread, you should be getting yourself screened around age 40. So it can kind of depend on that. You know, whether it's annual or not, it kind of really just depends on the situation and family history. But if you don't fit any of those categories, and believe it or not, they base a lot of this stuff on how much longer you're going to be living. You know, if you don't have any of those issues, and with the anticipation of living 10 years or more, then, you know, I guess around 50, and that's where you kind of fit in the annual thing or 2-3 year thing, or, you know, it kind of depends on the situation.
Okay, so I mean, I think that's very helpful, right? I think some people are going to say, hey, if you occasionally hear about one of our elder statesmen say, I just have a glass of whiskey and a cigar every day and I'm good. And he's like 95 years old, but the reality is he's 1 in a million, literally, right? I mean, not everybody can do that, right? Some people who don't drink or smoke or whatever the case may be still catch a form of cancer. So I think you really just have to know, like you said, know your history, know yourself, be proactive with the annual checkups, and just do all we can do to protect ourselves. Because if you do nothing, then you really can't wonder why something happened, because you weren't proactive at all. So I think the key is being proactive. So that's my take. I just wanted to get some education. You guys have been great, so thank you.
Andre, you wanted to get in there, so go ahead, take yourself off mute.
Okay, thank you again. You know, it is so easy if you listen to women, and I'm going to just take it this way. They can talk about breast cancer and it's kind of like normal now. But when it talks about prostate, it's very difficult because it has to do with the man part. And nobody wants to have a man part that's you need to call 911 on. That makes you less than a man. But you know, we had this old saying, if one, take one and share with one. What's the impact? When I came down with prostate cancer, as I shared with you, I was at a setting at the church, and I just took the bold step and just sharing with the church. Didn't know what I was doing or the impact it was going to have. But after that church meeting, a lot of the brothers reached out to me. I won't say a lot, but there was a few who reached out to me and wanted to know the procedure, because they were actually going through prostate. As of today, they're going through their prostate battle now. And so they have me to fall back on. I'm not putting myself on a pedestal or nothing like that, but I can just share with them the procedure that I had. And by awareness, it makes things a whole lot easier or a whole lot better.
Okay. I'm curious, since we're on this topic, what would you say, this is open to anybody, what would you say to men who are scared to get tested?
I would
I
say
was scared.
first thing, okay. If I may, I think that if you look at where erectile dysfunction was before they came up with the PDE5 inhibitors, the Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra and whatnot, the discussion about erectile dysfunction was almost a taboo subject. And also in our modern age where everything is discussed in social media now, that we should be able to get rid of the stigma of the discussion about prostate cancer, and particularly in the African American community, since we do have a high rate of the disease compared to other population groups. I think basically it's just a thing of us getting outside of this box of stigmatizing medical conditions. I mean, HIV is doing better now than prostate cancer in terms of open discussions. I think we need to utilize the social media platform a lot more, with a lot more dexterity in terms of discussing prostate cancer, in African American community, treatment modalities, early detection, getting those screenings that we discussed. If we don't, put forth a greater effort, and Mr. Battle, I talked to him. I've talked to him for about 2 or 3 years on these matters, because I was introduced to him. Actually, he's been my patient before too. I shared it with him. So that's how I became to understand what his role was, but I didn't know how deep his role was in terms of what he was doing. And I think he's definitely on the right path. I think that basically we can, go forward from today and say, well, what type of modalities are we going to, seek to try to, open up the dialogue and to get more awareness out here so that our people are not just coming to the table at the point at which they find they have disease, as opposed to, we're dying prematurely or we're having, severe health issues related to it. I think that we need to get away from, this being a taboo subject or we have to get past these inability to discuss men's health.
So, one of the things I learned, my father passed away from prostate cancer. And one of the things I learned from his battle was to never let an older person go to the doctor by themselves.
Mhm.
I noticed that my father was losing weight, and I couldn't quite understand why he was losing weight. And I went over his house one day and I said, Dad, what's with the weight loss? And he said, well, I'm going to the doctor, I'm not quite sure. He referred me to somebody, been seeing this other doctor. And I remember telling my mother, I said, you know what? I'm going to take him to the doctor for his next visit. I take him to the doctor, go into the doctor's office. I'll go right in there with him. The doctor's opening up the manila folder, looking at stuff on the computer. He turns to my father and he says, Sam, why haven't you seen the urologist? And my father said, I've been going to the doctor. My father, at the last visit, heard neurologist
Mm.
and was going to a neurologist for some neuropathy.
Mhm.
By the time he got to a urologist, his numbers were off the chart. And the doctor said that he hadn't seen numbers like that since he was in medical school when they were studying, chart patients who were off the chart. So I learned, man, at a certain point, just go to the doctor with them. Go to the doctor with them. So
You bring that up, Gary, and I see it in dentistry all the time, where you have a person who's coming to the dentist and you're having discussion with them and realize that cognitively they don't understand you. So I will call the family member and say, are you their guardian, or do you work with them? Do you speak with them? Do you help them with their finances, that sort of thing? And so I have a conversation with not just the patient, but with the family member too, because I do know that a lot of times you may make recommendations, they have no idea what you're talking about. So you're 100% correct in that especially some of the caregivers are totally unaware of what's going on. And when the patient goes to see the doctor, they come out with paperwork they don't know. A lot of what's been shared with the patient is highly significant information.
You know, if I can jump in here, Brother Gary.
Yeah.
Dr. Clark and I, we were talking. We talked a lot yesterday, Dr. Clark. Dr. Clark and I was talking, and in lieu of what you were sharing, Gary, about your dad, Dr. Clark and I were basically really agreeing. You know, we have to really be careful with the language we put out there to men and to the public as it relates to this issue of prostate cancer. We have to learn to take all the medical jargon out of these conversations so as to help men truly understand this issue. There's nothing more important than that relationship between a patient and his physician. It's called informed decision making.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing more important than a patient truly understanding what is going on. That is why it is crucial for families to assist the male going to a doctor. You know, whenever I do these education sessions, I'm an advocate of women being available. You know why? Because women are our biggest supporter.
Mm-hmm.
They are our biggest supporter when it comes to this. So I'm an advocate of women being in those sessions, asking questions, being engaged, having an understanding, because you know I've talked to guys before that they said when they were told that they were diagnosed, they had prostate cancer, everything in their mind just shut down. They heard nothing. And then doctor could have been talking to them for 10, 15 minutes and everything was just coming and going. They heard nothing. But that wife, that spouse being there, she's that primary level of defense, that support system that can be hearing what's being shared and can articulate that information to a husband and what. But it's nothing more important than informed decision making. And there's nothing, it is equally important to have someone with that patient at that doctor to ensure that they are receiving the correct information and understanding.
Okay. Andre.
You are absolutely correct, because when I went from my for the MRI from my prostate, and the doctor beat around the bush, but then eventually he came around and says, the cancer, you're positive for cancer. And at that point, I pretty much blacked out. I didn't hear another word, but my wife was with me. And so when we got home, she was saying, you know, you got to do this, and no, you got to do that. And this is the next step. And I says, where'd you get that information from? And she said, the doctor said it. She was right there. And so it's important, or very imperative, that take your significant other with you, because it can be overwhelming to say you got cancer. And we always tag cancer with cancer is a death sentence, but not anymore, as Gary and everybody said, if you catch it early enough.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, given the time we have left, and I'm thinking about people who will be watching this podcast, and you know, I just want to go around the horn, touch base, and close out with everybody, but be able to share one thing that either you got out of it, or one thing that you think people watching this podcast should know or do. So I want to start off with our researcher, Mr. Spivey. What say you?
You know, Gary, what I will say, and I'm not trying to in no way make excuse for young men, but you know, there's an old saying my mother once told me: it's very difficult to have two things at the same time in your life. That's youth and wisdom. Wisdom comes with old age. Young men, they don't think about getting old. When I was in my 20s and 30s, I didn't think about getting old. But what I will say that I think is something that would help is that if there is a concerted effort with any organization to put this stuff where young people go, on YouTube, put it on TikTok. TikTok is where young people get all of their information. If you didn't know that during the presidential race, you had young people that didn't even know if Biden was still running for president because it wasn't on TikTok. That's where they get the information. And the last thing I'll say is, I believe one of the things that you can use to get this message out to African Americans is some of these athletes. The problem a lot of time with these athletes, if you're not paying them, they're not going to put your message out. But you go back and you think about it. When Magic Johnson came out and said he had AIDS and he was playing with the Lakers, people were lining up for AIDS tests. That scared the hell out of them. And so if you could get some of these athletes like Patrick Mahomes and some of these other guys, LeBron James and some of these people to put that message out there about prostate cancer, you may be able to get through to some of the young people. It really, you called me the researcher. I was really perplexed because I was doing some research for this show. And I came across something and it really puzzled me because it said Black men, their mortality rate is double that of white men. And they talked about the reason that they feel it's double is because Black men find out about it in the later stages. But the thing that really threw me was for Latino men, the incident mortality rate tends to be lower than Black and white men. And they fall somewhere in between when it comes to the likelihood of being diagnosed at an advanced stage. It really, I don't know why that would be, but they must be getting the message out to their young people that this is a deadly disease. But I think if we could get some of these well-known athletes to be a proponent and hit social media, because that's the only way you're going to get the young folks is through social media.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well said. I know that singer Charlie Wilson has been one who's been out there for a while. He even came through with on blackmeninamerica.com several years ago when he was diagnosed. But like you said, more need to be like that and be out there. CJ, what's your takeaway or anything you have to say?
I don't have much. I want to thank everybody for the great information and, like I said, just the emphasis on preventative treatment and, people my age taking it seriously and being aware of the issue and using the resources that they have available to them to try to get ahead of it.
Okay. Carlos.
Yeah, I would say also family history. I think sometimes when men get sick in a family, they try to keep it between them and their wives, and they don't really share the information with their family. And this is something that if someone in my family got sick with it, I would want to know, because now we're talking about a family history can be a cause, or it could lead to possibly me having it as well. So I would just say families sharing information concerning your health, even though it may be somewhat embarrassing, but even if it's in a private setting amongst your loved ones, I think you need to get the word out when someone in the family has had a cancer or a certain type of cancer or a certain type of illness, especially because it could be hereditary. And you could help save the life of another family member by just disclosing your information. You're not necessarily, I wouldn't do it on TikTok, but I understand where Mr. Spivey's coming from on that for the young people. But it may be in a family setting, having some of these serious conversations, as well as the fun conversations when you gather for example, the upcoming holidays, etc. So communication in the family is key. So that's what I'm taking away. Thank you.
Okay. Andre, any final words?
The journey begins with the first step. Be bold and be ready to share with family members. Let the journey start with the members of your household. Be courageous and bold. You don't know the impact that you'll be leaving with someone in your own family. That's my takeaway.
Okay, thank you. Will, and then Dr. Clark.
Okay, well, I got three things I just want to leave real quick. I do, brother Carlos, you mentioned earlier that you were in banking. one of the things that comes into play when we're doing this work, funding is a huge issue. You have access to that bank. You have access to the funding piece that can really make a lot of things roll for organizations like ours that are out here engaging in this. So I know you said that, this is beyond outside your expertise, but you are in a position that could make some things happen for organizations like ours, the funding. Secondly, I think Brother CJ is huge. I think he has an opportunity or that platform for that younger generation that he can be a major catalyst for getting younger people to kind of listen to this message or pull for the young generation on this message. I think he will be powerful. And the last thing I want to leave with everyone is, a couple of years ago, the only way the New York Giants beat the New England Patriots was with defense. Our greatest defense and I'm a Giants fan, by the way, but our greatest defense with this issue is screening. Screening is the greatest defense against this issue. If we're not getting, we can talk till our lips fall off, but if we're not getting screened to be able to eliminate or look for something before it happened, we're kind of like just being defeated if we're not getting screened. So get screened.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Clark.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think the African American church and the barber shops, the beauty shops are probably the places where African Americans congregate the most. And I think that if we were to focus on these entities as being a focal point for us to start having these discussions earnestly and not just, hit or miss. We have to understand that it has to be an ongoing engagement 24/7, 365 days a year for us to get the messages across to our people that we are succumbing to health disparities at a far worse rate than any other population group. A lot of it, comes back to the screenings, the early detection and treatment, the dissemination of credible source data information, because we get too much in the social media sphere of people who are not qualified to speak on health matters, who are muddying up the waters when it comes to us getting, accurate information about health. So I think if we look at those entities like the Black church and those areas where people congregate on a regular basis, the beauties and the barber shops and whatnot, and start tackling those things. And Mr. Battle mentioned about Mr. Proman having access to capital. We need to start, looking at where do we have these access to capital for 501c3s or organizations that are, getting that information out to African American communities. I don't think we have any focal point to which to start to say who is accessing or reaching out to these entities that can fund these health messages. And I think that's where I'm gonna leave it.
Okay. I want to close out by just looking at the numbers.
Hey, Gary.
Gentlemen, any final comments before we close out?
Gary, I got one thing I will bring up.
Okay.
A few years ago, I came across a gentleman that I met, and he was going through prostate cancer treatment. And I just wanted to throw this out so people would be aware. An HBCU, Howard University, has a proton cancer research center there, and they treat prostate cancer. And it's focused on proton therapy, which is very precise and less invasive cancer treatment. So I just want people to know that that is an avenue of somewhere that you can look into for.
Brother Spivey, did you say Howard or Hampton?
Hampton University.
Okay, yeah, they've been around for a while.
It's called Hampton University Proton Cancer Institute.
In fact, I know 2 prostate cancer survivors that have gone through that treatment program, that proton treatment program in Hampton, that we highly recommend it. They've been around since probably 2011. In fact, Hampton was the first proton treatment center before the Dukes, before the Carolinas, before the Hopkins, before the University of Maryland, Hampton University had the first proton treatment center in this area.
You're exactly right. And the gentleman I'm talking about, he successfully went through there and he beat it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't even get deep about proton treatment. That's a whole nother subject, Brother Gary.
Well, we'll come back with a part 2. I'm sure we're going to do this, but make no mistake, we are making a difference and we are going to save some lives.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. And the reason I know that, or else we wouldn't be here. So on behalf of the Thought Brothers and our guests this afternoon, I'm Gary Johnson for the Thought Brothers. And until next week, we're out of here. Hang on for a
Take care,
minute.
folks.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
You may think that it's over, that your life is done.
The best
Oh my.
is yet to come.
Don't sweat the challenge. Your battle's already won. Yeah.
Is yet to come.
Listen, y'all. See, God writes the end before the story begins. Oh, he told me to tell you the best.
Is yet to come.
As the author of your faith, he wrote a provision for you to win. You're a winner. You're a winner. You're a winner. Yeah.
You ain't seen your best days yet.
You ain't seen your best days yet.
You ain't seen your best days yet.
I don't care what people told you. You ain't seen no
You ain't seen your best days.
Oh, Lord.
Is yet to come.
My.
You ain't seen your best days yet.
Stay in the faith, my sister.
You ain't seen your best days yet.
Stay in the word, my brother, my brother, my